So speaking of video, let's get into content creation stuff. You mentioned since you unfortunately lost your job, you've been focusing more on the content creation and the things, which has been super cool. Like I said earlier, like I saw your credit card points racket, as it were, like to help people get some discounts on flights and how to travel to tournaments, which is super duper useful. We watched your specific explanation on the SOCD shenanigans that was happening a little bit earlier, like a month ago. Nice. So with how you're approaching content now, has anything changed from like when you were a professional player? Like, do you view games differently now that you're seeing them through the lens of, oh, let me make content for this way?
Well, I think when I was a player, I specifically didn't make content because I didn't have time. And streaming was difficult, right? Because my job involved talking to a lot of people. I was the technical art director for a mobile ad studio, right? So I was like literally in meetings all the time and managing people, doing designs. I didn't have the energy to stream. I think now that I have the energy to stream, and now that I've changed from it, like into a content creator, that also, like, I am also a competitor still. Like let's not get that confused. Yes. And not saying like, you know, you are in any way, but the lens is different because you're constantly on the hunt for new things to talk about. And I think for me specifically, it's really easy to fall into the trap of talking about negativity, and I have in the past, and it's something I'm trying to avoid, not because it gets more views. In fact, it gets less views, to be positive on things than negative. But specifically, like, what can you talk about that is original? What can you talk about that's engaging and like gets views? And I think the answer is it's okay not to get views all the time, right? Like, make the content that you want to watch. And for me, it's like super chill, vibing content. And I think that the FGC needs more of that. And so, you know, it's just fun. I don't know. Like, I've always been in content production at work. So like editing videos doesn't take long for me. And like, just find some stuff to talk about it, be educated on the subject, and go nuts. Like, that's just what I do, you know?
Yeah, and you're doing this all on your own, right? Or do you have like an editor, or do you have your team, anything?
Nope. Okay. I do it all on my own. So I wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning, sit down with my coffee, 8:30. Usually right now I'm playing Tactics Ogre in the morning. The game's sick. I sit down, edit videos for an hour, stream for about 5 hours, edit videos for 2 hours, and then Tuesday and Wednesday I do it all day. So I treat it like a 9 to 5, 9 to 6, and just run content all day.
Yeah. Now, to your point about finding things to talk about and like kind of the content ideation stuff, as far as FGC content is concerned, it feels like, and I could be completely wrong about this, but to me, it feels like there's only like two types of like mainstream FGC content, right? Which is either educational, where it's like, oh, here's how you get better at this, or here's how you do X, Y, and Z, or like executional of like, you know, match highlights, match footage, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Are there any content avenues or like discussions that you think should exist in FGC content that doesn't exist right now?
I think the hardest thing about FGC content to do right is serializing it, right? Brian F is the only person that's really done it, right, with his road to Grandmaster or whatever. I forget the exact ranking, but like the way he does content is beautiful. Both him and Double A, do amazing work, and I'm very jealous of it because it's exactly the type of stuff that I think makes sense for the FGC. It's quick to produce, right? Because it's just match footage. I mean, it takes time, but you know, it's not crazy. It's like the golden goose, right? Because there's a lot of FGC players. You're right; they do either educational, which gets some views, sometimes it doesn't. My educational content has done the best on my channel, but then the execution stuff, right? It feels very siloed into those two buckets, right?
Yeah.
And I think the challenge for content creators is how do you serialize and make it easy to produce, right? Because you can't talk about a lot of FGC content creators, right? Because like the nature of content is when you're playing fighting games, you're like, oh man, oh nice. Like that's what you talk about, right?
Yeah. And
Brian F has translated that into content, and good for him, right? The other type is like, oh yeah, top 10, what Jamcrofts does, right? Like top 10 this, top 10 that. You know, like talking about what players think about modern controls and all that stuff is well and good, but it's very news, right? So I think let's add news to the bucket and say it's really right now one of those three.
Yeah.
And if you're not doing one of those three, or you're not that guy that does the crazy DBFZ videos, it's kind of hard to find like if you know what I'm talking about, the Shogunmu, I forget his name, but
Yeah,
he
I
does
think
like
I've
the
seen
animations. Yeah, those are like really like the three main silos, and
Mhm.
people just kind of pick one and go with it, which is that's fine, right? Like it's just a matter of like building a brand and building like content that people enjoy and getting it out there. Which I'm still new to. I'm figuring it out.
Yeah. And in that same vein, do you think, in your very honest opinion, do you think FGC content is good as it is right now?
It's not the content I watch.
Yep.
I watch Hearthstone content more than anything. I watch Hearthstone content. I watch Mario Maker. Weirdly, I watch I watch shit like that because like for me, I like to watch content that I fall asleep to. Like I put on subtitles and I just pass out, right?
Yeah.
And FGC content is by nature high energy because it's by nature a high energy game. Which is why I make content that's a little bit more chill, or why I'm trying to make content that's a little bit more chill, right?
Yeah.
Like I think that is missing. So for me, do I think it's good? I think it's good, but I think it's not for me, right?
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And what is the future of FGC content? Do you foresee like any like new trends? Like it was really funny because even this morning on our morning stream, I looked at FGC TikTok, and all I could find was one person who was describing like historic moments, right? Like somebody like describing moment 37, Evo moment 37. Like there's like, you know, the hot take of like, oh, this character type is the worst, or like people, or like the coolest thing I think we saw was like there was somebody who like did their own like fighting game intro, right? Like they like were super dressed up and they came in and like and they like invited other people to stitch it or whatever. So like, do you think there is going to be like a trend or something? Because like there's going to be there's an incoming wave of shenanigans that's about to hit with Street Fighter 6 hitting.
Oh yeah.
Do you think there's going to be like one format or one thing that's going to take off, or do you think it's going to be like a more like diverse with whoever is making content?
I mean, I can tell you right now, I'll put all my chips on black that the most popular Street Fighter video will be some guy named like Johnny Donuts who has like 8 bajillion followers and isn't in the FGC being like, I'm Ryu, and he comes out walking like this, right? And he's got a headband on. It's like, I'm Cammy, and he's sitting there like this, and that's going to be like the 8 million view video. I think for Street Fighter specifically, I don't know what the trends will be. I mean, like, I wish I knew, otherwise I'd hop on it, right? I imagine that single player content is going to be a lot more prevalent. I imagine that, I will say this, if someone can figure out how to serialize Street Fighter and not constantly look for new avenues and new things to talk about, like if there's a series, like they will strike gold. That's why Brian F has struck gold, right? He found success in a series because the game supported it, and he is a very likable guy who's been doing this for a long time, right? If someone can find that may not be the quote unquote trend, but they will do the best because you can put out one video a day, it gets 50 to 60,000 views, and you rake it in, right? Like that's what success looks like in the FGC. It's not this constant blippy chase for clout, like that. You get 100,000 views and you make like $200. Like who cares, right? Like it's all about like constantly producing content that people enjoy and watch it over and over again. That's why I like the streamers I like, because they release one 10-minute video that's super chill, and it does really well because it only gets like 50K views only. TM. But they release like 2 a day, right? Or 1 a day.
Right.
That's where the content is in Street Fighter, honestly, from my perspective. There will be trends, there'll be top 10 whatevers, there'll be here's my intro. There will be like, here's this crazy character and like, welcome to blah blah blah. Like, but I think that's the content that's gonna go well because it's the content that'll last through all of Street Fighter 6 life cycle.
Yeah. And do you think with the incoming craziness of Street Fighter 6, do you think there's going to I maybe this is a dumb question to ask, but feel free to give me a dumb answer. With this new Street Fighter 6, and it seems like this specific Street Fighter, which we've discussed on the show quite a bit, is catering more to bringing new people to Street Fighter, right? Like they finally like brought a fighting game to the 21st century. There's RPG elements, open world stuff, like that's all like kind of meant to funnel people into like playing the fighting game. Do you think we're going to see a rise of like a new age of the FGC of people who like either are creating content and are not FGC adjacent and then turn FGC adjacent, or do you think like a lot of people outside of the FGC are going to start finding FGC content because of it, because of Street Fighter 6?
I think the latter. I think that there aren't going to be a lot of creators that are like, I'm in the FGC now. Like that doesn't, like they're content creators. If they start making Street Fighter 6 content, chances are they're variety streamers or variety content people to begin with. Yeah. I think that like there's been a few League of Legends players that have turned like, doesn't like Dyrus play like Uniel or something like that now? Like someone plays Uniel now that does that. Like that'll always exist, but it's definitely going to be the latter of like people will get into FGC content and start watching it because of Street Fighter 6. Like that game is going to be bigger than I think we ever thought possible. And looking at the love that like I'm an art nerd, like I'm a designer. Yeah. Looking at the love that's gone into the design and the style and let me say that correctly. The style of that game. The style of that game is so sick nasty that I can't imagine the game not having the same amount of love put into it. And I think we're seeing it on all fronts, and it won't be like 5 where it released with like a, just a drop in the bucket. Yeah. This game's going to blow up, and I'm very confident in saying that. So it'll bring a lot of people to the FGC. And I'm excited, not only for the content, but for them to show up to tournaments. Like that's what I'm really excited about as a competitor.
Yeah, no, and it's funny that we were talking about CEO earlier because like that is the first big major for Street Fighter 6. So I'm super curious to see how that unfolds. I had something in my brain and it's now gone. I think like the big. Actually, let me ask you this. Let's go. Sure. Let's go towards another avenue. You mentioned content creators like Brian F, who have kind of like found their thing. Who are some of the other like content creators? Doesn't have to be FGC necessarily, but who are some other content creators that you look at and say something to the effect of, I want to do that, or like this is the kind of stuff I wanted to get into? Yeah,
I think the top 2 in my mind, Brian Kibler and Trump SC. Trump SC being the Hearthstone player. I really enjoy, again, like I love serialized, easily digestible content. Yeah. The other ones I watch regularly that I look up to are Pajia Panga, who is like a Mario streamer, and I'm like, okay, cool. Why do I watch this? I don't even like Mario, but like it's just something to fucking watch, and like it's super chill, and I'm down for it. And like everything relates to it's super chill. I think the only person I watch that's like, oh my god, OMG. I also watch Jam Crofts too. Like that's the other streamer I watch, and I always check out whenever I have like what is a question I can have. I always look at Diaphone and Lord Knight also like for their content, but I'm not a regular viewer. I just look at them for videos that I find interesting, which is fine. It's a good place to be in. But again, like that's why serialized content does well. For me anyways, right? Like it turns me into a regular viewer. The person that I think I find the funniest and I'm like, damn, I wish I could be like them. I fucking love Simple Flips, dude. Simple Flips is so funny. I love Simple Flips. If only I could be more like Simple Flips, then I would be a happy person. Yeah. Every day I wake up going, why am I not Simple Flips? No, I love that guy. He's a good person. I actually really like Simple Flips, but yeah.